Right, good day, Fish. A long time no see. How are you going, my mans?
Good. I haven't seen you since China.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, that's partly because we live in different countries, but I feel like you live in two countries, man. You're like up and back, up and back, up and back, from Singapore and China. But just a quick one for people that may not necessarily just know, may not necessarily know who the man, the myth, the legend Fish is. Matthew Fish Stewart is a um multi-talented esports extraordinaire who's been a male model slash actor slash famous person in Singapore, a caster, a commentator, a business owner, a football coach. He's been actually everything that you possibly can be in one lifetime. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Close. One
Close?
of those things is a joke that was started by Jake Swan Tabiri,
That's
the
true.
male model part.
Yep.
Do you know so if for people that don't know the joke, Jake noticed that I had a large amount of Instagram subscribers, and when I moved to the OPL, not many people in the OPL had a large Instagram following. It was all on Twitter or Snapchat.
Yes.
But because Southeast Asia primarily uses Facebook and Instagram, my reach was a lot larger on those two platforms. So the way Jake, instead of describing it to people, what he would do is he would just say, "Oh yeah, he was just a male model in Singapore. That's why he's so popular." That joke has gotten out of control. I
Out of
went
control.
to I went to do the League of Legends Sea Tour broadcast, and a makeup artist came and was like, "I heard that you're a male model in Singapore," in like fluent Chinese. I was like, "Where the heck did you find this out from?" And you trace it back. It's exchanged like six different hands since Jake Toberi told the joke, and people think that it's true. I'm like, no, it's not what happened.
I
Not that good looking. I wish.
I'm not gonna lie. I took that story and ran with it, my dude. Like
Oh, God.
I am in fact that guy who who ran away with that story, partly because it's a beautiful underdog story. It's nice man turned male model turned esports extraordinaire. Is he wearing
Oh
AirPods?
boy.
Yeah. So we had a discussion off broadcast and we said what can we do to make us look really wealthy, and we decided to put in Apple AirPods, right? Fish. I I
Just
actually have
flexing.
I actually I don't know Fish if you're watching the broadcast, but I
I
actually
can
have
pull it up.
pods sitting here. So I just want to let everyone know that I do in fact have some money to spend on these. So
Uh,
yeah.
I can see them on the
Yeah.
broadcast now. Well, I'm traveling at the moment, hence my dodgy vertical cell phone setup. We tried it from my laptop. It makes me look like Gigantor because of the weird webcam position, and I don't have a headset. This is all I have right now. It is
Mm,
the best quality microphone I have available to me.
that is unfortunate. Well, that's what happens when you travel, man. You can't take everything, right? And you got to think like, what can I leave behind?
True. I normally just pack my entire house, and then people yell at me for packing too much.
Are you that guy that packs a lot? I feel like you're a light
Yeah,
packer. Really? I thought you'd
nah.
be a light
I
packer.
nah. I pack as much as possible because I always think, what if I need this thing? What if I need it and I
Although,
don't have it? Then I'm screwed. But if I needed it, I would have it there. And if I didn't need it, oh, I'll just bring it back with me. And I'm just weird like that.
well, so I'm trying to I'm gauging this off when I was with you in China. Is I remember we used to go to the office at work and you would travel with one shirt, and I was like, damn, this guy's a light traveler. I'm here with a backpack, aftershave, hair product, like, like damn, I'm a bit high maintenance.
That was for broadcast, so you can only see me from the waist up. So I just need that one shirt.
I
The
think
rest of
that
it,
is
it's all good.
no joke. The first time that I heard that broadcast people wear like whatever below the waist they wear whatever, I was so shocked. I was so shook. I couldn't believe that casters weren't wearing full suits at times. Sometimes they do, but like there's the occasional broadcast where they're not wearing high end clothing.
They Some places have started making it so that you have to be at least smart casual from waist down. I know the LCS kind of enforces this now because they had a comedy gold moment where Freak walked off the set, but as he
Oh,
walked off, you could see he was wearing flip flops.
wow.
So it just kind of ruined the scene because everyone was like, "Oh, that's really funny." Wait, he's wearing flip flops, and the focus changed from the comedy aspect to like the fact that he wasn't wearing broadcast clothes. So some places enforce it now just so that if you have those impromptu funny moments, it doesn't affect it as much. But
I had no idea. I
w-
don't even see it.
we weren't walking off that set. Don't worry, we were sitting down the whole day.
Nah, yeah. We were just playing around with toy guns. Um,
Oh yeah, I've broken four.
have you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've officially broken four of the prop guns on the ROS set.
That's and is the grenade still alive?
The grenade is still alive, and it
Nice.
hurt me.
The
It
gr
actually it actually hurt one of my fingers really bad because I threw it up in the air, caught it, and then my ring finger got stuck like this as I
Oh,
caught it. Yeah, it wasn't fun.
what have you got any new props or is it just same old same old?
um, we don't have any new props yet. I think we'll get some for next season, but I we dismantled the studio and built it again in the new office that we moved to.
Yeah.
So during that, we realized we had all these tires that were just used as props, like to decorate it.
Yeah.
So now I've got a tire next to me that I pick up from time to time, and that's my new prop,
And just whack your co-caster if he's doing
pretty
something wrong.
much. I was going to, but then we realized there were nails that were sticking out of the tire because it was actually nailed to the set. We're like, oh, let's not do
Oh,
that.
yep. Be careful. All right. Well, that was a nice little reminiscing catch up. So you being Matthew Fish Stewart grew up in Singapore, am I correct?
That's right.
So were
I,
you
I lived in. Go
how?
on.
Yeah. What were your ages like? Cause were you born in Australia, born in Singapore, and what did it look like growing up for you?
Well, I was born in Australia,
Yeah.
but when I was born, my parents were already working in Malaysia, which is a country just north of Singapore. And most people will know Malaysia a little bit more. Malaysia and Singapore used to be the same country, but just about 55 odd years ago, the two countries separated. So Singapore became its own independent state. Um, my dad was a footballer and he was playing in Malaysia at the time.
Mhm.
So my parents technically flew back to Australia. I was born there during the football off season. And then when I was a few months old, flew back to Malaysia and begun my life there. I was in Malaysia for 6 years.
Yep.
So when I was 6 years old, I moved to Singapore and I grew up in Singapore. My first jobs were in Singapore. I finished my education in Singapore as well.
Was it your first language too?
And uh,
Like,
so so in Malaysia, the national language is Bahasa. Most people know it as Malay. In Singapore, the national language is still Bahasa, but it's not the language of business. So if you go to a restaurant, a school, if you go to work, you're always communicating in English. English is the business language in Singapore.
okay.
So when I was in Malaysia, when I was young, I could speak pretty decent Bahasa. Now my Bahasa is not very good. Um, I learnt Chinese in school, so I can speak Mandarin as a second language. But my first language has always been English. And I actually lived in Singapore all the way till the day that I moved to the OPL. When I moved to the OPL was the first time in my life that I'd moved out of Singapore to live in a different country.
Wow. Yeah, because I remember you telling me that when I was in China. And actually, fun fact, Fish does speak Chinese because a lot of the times we took Ubers, the Uber driver would be like shook that there was like a white guy that spoke like Chinese. And don't you have a funny story where like was it you that had the Uber driver being like, man, like this idiot or so, I don't know, like he was saying something like negative
Yes,
about you, and then you
yes.
replied back in Chinese, and then the guy's like, oh, my bad. What,
That was actually in Singapore.
oh, it was a Singapore.
Uh,
Okay, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
I was in Singapore doing a business trip, and I got in a cab from my girlfriend's place in Singapore to where I was going to work, and I had left my wallet upstairs. So when I got in the cab, I was like, "Oh, hey, could you give me a second? I need to run up." I left my wallet upstairs, so I
Yeah.
went up and grabbed my wallet. And immediately, like once we started getting on the journey, the cab driver was on the phone to his friend. And he was just basically spewing how this stupid, ignorant white person forgot his wallet back in his house, so he's now delayed to go for his next job. And I was like, well, I feel bad, you have to call me a stupid, ignorant person. I mean, it's not nice. So I just started speaking to him in Chinese, and it was like, oh,
Oh,
oops.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, that's so funny, man. That's actually the best story. Um, Oh, cool. So yeah, the first time you lived in Australia was when you worked in the OPL, and I actually have here like I've got like a little flow. I did a flow chart of like what I knew to be your, and I probably missed some, but what I
Oh
knew to
no.
be Fisher's careers, or not even careers, just jobs. So stop
Oh
me if I
no.
get it wrong, but this is what I think is correct.
Okay.
So I think you went from a
Okay.
football coach. You're doing like a lot of.
Oh no. There was one before that.
What was that?
One before that. I was a cook and a waiter at Nando's.
Oh, nice. Nando's is poggers. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I learned
Nando's.
to be a cook in Australia Nando's, and then I brought it over to Singapore and did it here for like a month or two.
So Nando's, football coach, basketball coach,
Yeah.
architect,
Yep.
actor and model, haha. Well, with
Yes.
like Wawa bananas.
Yep.
Yeah, and then esports associate at Garena.
Yep.
And then you went right game shoutcaster, which was like OPL, then LPL.
So it was technically LPL, OPL, LPL,
Ah,
but
okay.
yep,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
right.
okay. Then you've taken over, and I saw some pictures where you did stuff with the Darren Stewart Academy.
Hmm.
Yep. Um, you founded Loudmouths,
Yep.
FPX shoutcasting manager.
That's me.
Yes, and then I said, what haven't you done?
uh,
And I probably got the
uh,
timelines a little bit wrong in some of them, but for the most part, like that has been like everything that you've done in your life in terms of
well,
work.
I haven't outsmited Levi, so
No,
that's not on my
that is
resume.
not. But
No.
you did work on the same server as Levi at a certain point.
Yes, I was the first person to cast Levi's first ever professional match.
Were you? There's
Yeah,
one for it. So you could say outcasted Levi, by the way.
outcasted Levi. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, that's poggers. So, I mean, we're gonna get into like probably most of those things that I rambled off. I just wanted to see if I could get it right because I feel like most people they get a niche and then they go for it, and I feel like you've just like done everything. Um,
I Jack of all trades,
yeah.
master of none so far.
Oh,
I've been the master one of
some would argue
them.
you're a master. Um, um, and so the first one I actually want to talk about, I didn't even mention, was like your League of Legends playing career. Because
Oh boy.
I remember in China when we were walking to back from the police station, I had to get my alien card to say, hey, I'm not from here.
Yep.
Um, you told me about your playing career, and it was quite interesting. So refresh my memory.
Sure. I mean, when I was playing semi-professionally, so I try to exaggerate it a little bit when I'm talking about it on broadcast.
Yeah.
If anyone watched the recent League of Legends C Tour, that was kind of the region I played in competitively. So I would go on broadcast and say I played competitively here. In reality, I played semi-competitively. I played in basically your equivalent of the OCS is
Okay.
the highest level that I've achieved in my competitive the OCS level.
Mhm.
In fact, if you go to Leaguepedia, you can find my name in some of the professional tournaments.
Oh, nice.
Uh, I think if people really want to go and search, look for Tristana Cup 32, and you can find under a team named Zephyrus. My name Fish will be there. There's no real backstory towards anything, but that was basically the amateur scene in Singapore. The highest we ever placed was second place in the Tristana Cup 32, and we lost to a little-known players team called Chowie. His team
Oh,
beat us in the Tristana 32,
was he
which
playing?
promoted him to.
Was he
Sorry?
playing from Korea?
No, Chowie was playing from Singapore. He's a Singaporean.
Oh.
So, so his team went on to play in the main circuit, and he eventually got poached by the Singapore Settlers, and then he went on to go play for TPA and the LMS and all these other
Sorry, I
big
thought you said
regions.
Chovy. Chowie. Sorry, I
Oh
know
no, no,
Chowie.
no,
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 no.
Toby,
Chowie,
Chowie,
Chowie.
yeah,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Toby.
yeah.
And if you, there was no live recording of this because this was before League of Legends really blew up and became a big competitive esport. This was the same year that TPA won Worlds, so that was a long time ago. The next season was when things started blowing up a little bit more, and I started playing with a lot of the friends of mine that I knew who play from Jakarta in Indonesia. And I was basically one of their imports for their team. And a tournament showed up, the first ever Indonesian tournament, which, rest in peace, Indonesian servers closing, I think, 15 days or something now. But first ever Indonesian professional tournament came up. It was in the international game show in Jakarta, IGS Jakarta. And I played as an 80 carry for the team. We just registered online. We played our online matches, and our final match, if we had won, we would qualify for the main event. And we were ecstatic. Like, we never expected to go that far. We had our top laner was gold, basically. Like, we had probably the best mid laner on the server, one of the best junglers, a fantastic support, but our top laner was gold, and we were just all a bunch of friends. So we're like, yeah, we're not going to go too far. And we had to play against NXL, which at the time was the biggest esports organization in Indonesia. They have like a huge, not gaming house, but like cyber cafe / training area in Indonesia. They were really big, and we were scared playing against them, but we managed to smash that game, qualified for the IGS game show. We didn't expect to qualify, so I literally had to look up when the dates were for the main event. It was in 5 days. I booked a flight immediately. I had to go to my school to tell them that I'm going to miss an exam because I'm going to play League of Legends overseas.
We're doing esports, by the way. That's why I can't do my exam.
they thankfully let me do it at a later date because the lecturer knew that I was really passionate about it and allowed me to take the time off to go and do it. I would have just flunked my exam if I didn't get the F. Don't follow my full list, but I would have done that. And I went to play in Indonesia. We came 4th in Indonesia in that tournament. And that was like an eye-opening experience. You can find VODs of it online. Look for IGS Jakarta game show League of Legends tournament, and you can find the VODs there. There's a few games that we played on the main stage and on the stream, and they were broadcasted.
Actually, I can support his statement that he was at least in the OCS because I duoed with Fish on the O server and he styled on some OPL players who I won't mention.
Hang on. No, there's an even better story.
No. Ignore that one.
No, there's this story of when Frosker and I duoed bot lane. I was 80 carry and Frost was supporting me. You ganked us. What was it? 3 times, Juves?
Maybe.
And I think we got a quadra kill at level 3 because your top laner teleported in. We 2v4'd. I kind of remember this one. That story is a bit familiar.
That was the downwards trajectory of my OPL career after that solo queue game. My career just went down and down and down. And yes,
no.
I don't know if it's gals, but it is live. That is what I meant to say. But that's awesome. I love the fact that because I feel like that is probably one of your most it's not your most well-known story is the fact that you were for the time, somewhat a professional player for the time.
I mean, it did stop for a reason. I started when I finished the IGS game show, I was on top of the world. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Like, I've been doing really well. I wanted to try and see if I could actually continue the path to pro. And I was grinding to hit, challenger in the Singapore servers because I was always at, Diamond 1, 75 LP-ish, somewhere there. And this was before Master Tier came into play.
Yeah.
So I was grinding to hit challenger. I finally got into my promos, won my first 2 games, and then I was like, I'm not going to risk it. I started dueling with a couple of the pro players in Singapore, and we just could not win. And then I got knocked out of promos, grinded again, got into promos, knocked out again, knocked out for the 3rd time, and then I went on a documented 33-game losing streak, dropping me from Challenger promos to Diamond 4. And this was just before I got an offer to join Garena full-time as an esports associate. So when that happened, I joined Garena, and the first day in the office, they were like, right, so we're going to put you on the FIFA team, so you're not going to be touching League of Legends anymore. So I was like, well, there goes everything. Just going to go to the FIFA team now. I'm not going to touch League of Legends. Bye-bye.
Hey, FIFA is a poggers game.
It is. It's a great game. I was the producer for FIFA Online Esports for 2 years in Garena.
Really?
Yeah, that was so as an esports associate, I was producing the main English broadcast for FIFA Online 3.
And what FIFA was that? FIFA
FO3. So FIFA has two different game titles. One is FIFA's main title, which is FIFA / then the year. So FIFA 18, FIFA 19, FIFA 20. They have FIFA Online, which is made by Spearhead. It's an EA subsidiary that is based in Korea.
Oh.
And they made FIFA Online. The rationale behind it was FIFA is a paid game, which you have to pay something like 60 USD for the game itself, no matter what platform you're playing it on. FIFA Online's free and involves more heavy microtransactions than other games. And it catered towards the Southeast Asian and Korean as well as Chinese audience much better than FIFA did, because people would much prefer to play the game than spend on microtransactions and buying the game itself
I
right off
actually
the bat.
I had no idea. I played FIFA and I had no idea.
Yeah, so it was a like it was a little bit grind heavy. You could combine players, not different players, but if you have two of the same players, you could combine them together and they would rank up. And if you combined a very high level player with a low level player, there's a chance it fails and you lose your progression. So there was a lot of numbers involved, and it was quite a cool game. The only problem I had with it was it ran on the previous generation of FIFA's engine. So when FIFA upgraded every other year to a new engine, the online version still be using the old version.
Mm. Right. The more you know, Fishy, the more you know. Uh, so then, we spoke about you going to Greener, and then how did your Wawa? I said I got Wawa down here, but how did your Wawa Bananas career start? How did that actually start? And and
um,
and Wawa, for context, how many followers, subscribers do they have? What TV
uh,
shows or what's the go?
I'll go find out for you right now.
Yeah,
So it's Wa Banana. Wa Banana is the YouTube channel's name.
yeah.
Wa Banana is a Singaporean comedy YouTube channel. I know that they just surpassed 1 million followers recently.
Okay.
I stopped acting for them full time probably around when they hit 400, 500,000, I would say. Still about of the team, but yeah, they're at 1 million and something followers now. It's loading a little bit slow, but when it comes up, I'll let you know. That kind of stemmed from shoutcasting.
Mhm.
So when I was just 1,175,000, that's the amount of subscribers they have right
They're
now.
not bad numbers.
Not bad at all, not bad. Oh, close to me, but not quite. Um, when I was playing video games just casually, I met a lot of friends playing online. One of the people I met was a guy named Aaron Koo. His gamer tag is Jehudi, and that's what he was known by. He was moving jobs. He was actually moving from a writing company called Playworks in Singapore over towards Garena. And when he moved to Garena, he got put on the League of Legends team because he was a big League of Legends fan. And one of the first tasks that he had was setting up a team to cast the GPL. So he got a few casters in the area. They started casting together, and I noticed this, and I just started chatting with him. I was like, "Hey, are you still interested in looking for casters? It looks like something that'd be really fun for me to try and do."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, why don't you just do a few practice casts and send me what you have, and let's see if we can bring you on board." So I did a few practice casts. I did a bit of research. He said the producers liked it, so I came on board. Long story short, the producer thought that I was absolute garbage when I came on board, but they really needed people, so they kept me there. I was basically a
Sympathy.
body double,
Yeah, you got
a
sympathy.
body
Sympathy vote.
sympathy vote to join.
Yeah.
Then I started casting the GPL, and that producer then went on to a new project, and she was placed on a Garena project called Wild Banana. That came because they were making gaming comedy videos called In the League, where they followed the Singapore Sentinels around, they documented their progress, and they made some comedy videos out of it.
Okay.
During the off season, they had nothing to do because Singapore Sentinels were either boot camping or on holidays or something, so they just made comedy gaming skits. That's it.
Mhm.
And those were 10 times more popular than their videos on the Singapore Sentinels, which were already doing really well. They were really, really popular videos, but the comedy skits that she was producing were fantastic. So Garena saw this and was like, well, if the comedy skits are doing so well, why don't we just make a comedy channel? So they made Wild Banana, and they started doing non-gaming related comedy, and that blew up, like out of proportion. Like if their gaming skits were 10 times more popular than the documentary, the Wild Banana channel was 10 times more popular than the gaming skits that they were doing. So it just blew up and went crazy. And the original actors that we're using were all the GPL crew. So Aaron was on it. Janice, who is now his partner, they just got married a few months ago. They were on it as
Congratulations.
well. A few of the other commentators, like Elliot, he was on it as well. And when they started Webinar, I hadn't done any of the gaming skits yet. I was in a couple of cameos as a commentator, but nothing much.
Mhm.
And I'd say about 6 months into the inception of Webinar, they asked me to come on board because they were doing a show which was like movies versus real life. And they needed somebody to portray a boxer, and they asked me to do it. And for some reason, the costume that I was wearing to portray a boxer was a man with a really, really thick, bushy mustache, which was like, okay, that's like a stereotype, makes sense. But then it gave me like a French 1800s like war outfit. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense anymore. But that was the first video that I was in for them, and then they just kept asked me to come back. And when Aaron and Janice left the company to make their own YouTube channel, and he stopped shoutcasting as well,
Mm.
they asked me to come on board full time, or not full time, but more of a regular cast member for Wild Banana. So I started doing that and started commentating for Greener as more of a regular thing.
And so, and then that's where the male model and all that came into it as well.
That's that's where the male
What,
model joke comes from.
I didn't understand why we said male model. Like, why don't we just say model?
I don't know. You got to ask Jake Spawn Tiberi.
Because I feel like, yeah, I feel like we know you're a male. Or, I mean, like, you can be a female and a model too, right? You can just be a model.
I don't question the logic of the Lord Spoon,
Hey,
this is his joke.
the Mr. If it isn't Mr. MSI himself, huh?
Mr. M. Oh, he's going live in a couple of hours,
Yeah,
isn't
he is.
he?
So Bombers play at 8 o'clock, which is pretty much 2 hours almost from now.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
I guess I was gonna ask you how you got into casting, but I think that pretty much nailed it on the head. That was like a two-in-one. You just whacked it out of the park, mate. Um, and then I guess so. Your first time living in Australia that you said was for the OPL. What was
That's
casting
right.
the OPL like? That was your first? Was it? No, not really your first, but it was your first time kind of doing it on your own, I guess, in another country. And yeah, how was the OPL experience?
It it was literally a dream come true. I put it the way I put it is when I was casting with the GPL, it was fun. Yeah, we weren't like after TPA won and the whole LMS split happened, we weren't the biggest region anymore.
Mhm.
We had like when the TPA was playing in our league and a lot of the LMS teams were playing in our league, the region was huge. We were getting 15,000, 20,000 concurrent viewers on our YouTube page alone, just watching the GPL, which was massive. We were having a fun time. We were all just doing it for fun, part time. None of us were serious about it. And when I joined Garena after playing semi-pro for a while, I was like, well, that's it. I'm just going to become a producer, rank and file. Never really going to be in front of camera. I might just do Wild Banana until I die. Just make comedy videos now. And I thought that was it. I thought that and even then I was like, I've actually done pretty well for myself. Like I've made it into the YouTube scene. I
Mm,
thought I was pretty happy with where I was.
yeah,
But when when I got asked to come and do the LPL in Australia, which is the reason why I moved over,
yeah.
um,
Because it was out of
it
an
was
office, right? It was out of a studio in Sydney.
so we were using the OPL studio for both the OPL as well as the LPL at the
Oh,
time.
okay. Yeah, same studio. That's right. I'm fast forwarding a little bit. Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
And yeah, when I got the offer to move over to cast the LPL in Australia, it was like that was literally a dream come true. Like I never thought that they would come where I would get to work for Riot as a full-time shoutcaster.
Yeah.
Like that was unbelievable. I remember when because Jake was the one that called me to tell me that I got accepted after my interview process.
Yeah.
I remember I was trying so hard to keep calm because the video call was like, okay, that's great. I'm really happy. I'll give you my answer in 24 hours. Just want to think it over. As soon as the call hung up, I threw something across the room. I was like, yeah, just started going absolute mental.
Just
I was so ecstatic when it happened.
playing hard to get. You're just like, yeah,
And,
look, I'm gonna have to consider all my options. I'm not too sure if this is the option for me right now. So yeah, I'll get back
and,
to you. And then you're just like,
and And to be fair, I was something that I did actually consider for 24 hours. The rationale was Barbara was owned by Garena. So when I was moving to the OPL, when I got the offer to the OPL, Wabana was trying to become an independent company.
okay.
And
Oh,
they had
because
bid,
they were still as part of, yeah, okay.
yes, it was a Garena production.
Yeah.
But Garena was slowly phasing out Wabanana, so they were slowly not putting too many resources into it, didn't see the value for it. So the producer was like, well, I don't really want this channel to die. I want to, take it outside the company and would still be happy to be part of the greener production, but wanted to have more autonomy over the product.
Mhm.
So she actually went into two different bids, and this is the same. Her name is Lingy. Her new company is now 01 Studios, which is a play in Chinese because 01 means Lingy, which is her name. And she was the same producer that hated my guts when I joined the GPL the first time. Now she owns a Wild Banana. She basically did two pitches, and both times they were shut down by Garena. They're like, no, we're not going to relinquish the Wild Banana IP. And she said, when I got the offer, she was like, okay, I'm going to set up one final meeting. if we get Wild Banana, I'd like you to stay and join us to start a new venture. And I was like, look, if you get Wild Banana, I'd be happy to stay. And went into the new meeting. She came out. She said, no, there's no chance for you to get it. You should take the OPL offer. So I told Jake I accepted. 2 months later, she got the Wild Banana IP. So I was actually deliberating over something. It wasn't. I was really ecstatic. I knew I was going to take the offer no matter what, but I was deliberating over something at the time. But when I first walked into the Riot studio, and I would say for the entire 2 years I worked in Australia, every time I walked past like the Riot logo, I was like, I cannot bloody believe that I'm working for this company that I've looked up to since I was what? Since 2010. That was 9 years ago. So when I was 16, I was like, this is the company, this is my dream, that's who I want to work for. And like, I couldn't believe it.
I think I got that every time I played on stage as well. Every time I walked into the studio and played on stage, as soon as my foot would step up like onto the stage, I'd be like, damn, this is like, yeah, this is cool. Like I do,
Yeah,
you get to do something that like there's so many people like they could like they dream of, and like it's your dream too. But when it's a reality, it's like it's something
yeah.
special. Yeah,
It's the same with what I tell new casters when they're like, I'm so nervous, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you don't do anything. You're nervous. It's the point. If you don't feel nervous, you shouldn't be doing this job.
yeah.
Because if you're nervous, means you're not interested anymore. If
Well,
you're not
actually,
nervous, means you're not interested anymore.
I somewhat I did, and towards the end of my career, it's funny you say that. Like probably my last couple of games, maybe not so much my last game because there was like a lot of meaning behind my last game, but like I'd say there was a point like midway through my last split of the season where like I wasn't nervous, and then
Hmm.
I was just like, well, why am I not nervous? Why you know what I mean? So that's kind of I think that was kind of like a realization of like, hey, maybe I don't enjoy it as much anymore. But
Yeah.
I'm still like, when I go onto the stage and do pick band and stuff and coach now, I'm full nervous because it's something different, and I'm like, damn, like this is like a new experience, and it's a new like it's something new, and it's exciting.
It's different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah. So then when you went from LPL to OPL, what was that like? Was it pretty much the same thing, cause same studio, or was there a big difference?
Ooh, it was a big difference because the LPL, I was just one of the casters, basically. I was one of the new LPL casters. I had to like you think of the casters I was working alongside, right? Pastry Time,
Yeah.
now LCS NA caster. Uh, what's his name? Atlas, LCK main play-by-play. Jake Spontaviri, Mr. MSI himself. Rusty went on to work in the LPL, went to coach in the OPL this split as well. Frosker, an LEC head analyst, like one of the lead analysts, I should say, sorry. And then there was me. And I was like, uh,
Hello, guys.
hi guys, it's me. Um, GPL caster here. And it was so scary working along like all these S plus tier talent. And that year working the LPL was basically the year where I was like, I need to bloody improve. I need to like close that gap somehow.
Yeah.
So working the LPL was more of the way I describe it was like the final year of like high school or university where you're nonstop focused about that final exam. And all I was doing was trying to get better for that final cast. Because I knew that I needed to get better and get on par with like these crazy good casters. I got the luxury of casting the LPL Grand Finals, and I casted that with Rusty and Frosker in the year. That year is the year that IMA went to the World Championship.
Was that Road? IA
So
Road?
yes,
Yeah.
Road to Jinja.
Yeah.
They went to the World Championship. So that was the year that you know I put a lot of work in my casting. I was super focused on just trying to improve as much as possible. And when that year ended, was when the OPL was becoming a lot bigger. Everything was being taken offline, and Atlas was moving to the LCK. So they brought in new casters. Pulse moved over from the EU LCS at the time over to OPL.
Mhm.
Dom moved back from North America, coming over to cast the LPL as well. So they sat me down. I was like, what do you want? Do you want to continue on the LPL, which is a big international product, or do you want to do the OPL? And I sat with Jake for a very long time and
Spawn
deliberated
Tiberi.
over both Big Spawn Tiberi,
Yep.
and talked about it for a very long time about the pros and cons of both. And at the end of the day, I kind of decided that the OPL was probably a better fit for me. The LPL was a super highly professional league. which I thought I did very well in the first year that I was working there. Eventually went back to it after my time in Riot Oceania. But I felt that my character and my casting style and personality fit the OPL's laid back style a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like I was casting the GPL again, where, it's like the highest level League of Legends in Oceania. Like, without a doubt, these are the best 80 players, best 40 players you're going to see on the main stage every single week. But the broadcast itself was more laid back and something that I was a lot more used to. And that really allowed me to get out of the phase where all I was doing was working and working and working, and allowed me to actually enjoy casting again. So I thought that was a huge, huge step for me. And looking back at it, I wouldn't change it, because my improvement from that final cast of the World Championship, sending IMA to the World Championship, to OPL finals 2 years ago, was tremendous. And a lot of that was also working directly with Spawn for the entire split. That's the only person I worked with the entire split, and he mentored me, showed me what I was doing wrong. And the production team, people like Matthew Bowdrum, who is the producer for the OPL now, were able to help me out a ton during the OPL, and it was just amazing.
This
Couldn't
isn't a
believe it.
Spawn plug stream. This isn't a Spawn plug stream. No, I'm joking. Yeah, and I think that's cool. That's what's cool about the OPL, is like it allows people to work on and bring out their personalities with their work. Whereas like
Hmm.
sometimes a lot of some other broadcasts can be like quite rigid, and it's like, yeah, we know Fish, like we know Fish as a caster, and like, yeah, he's cool, but like what's he really like? And I think,
I,
yeah,
yeah, I agree. 100%, because on the LPL, it's professional. You're
yeah,
casting to the 1% of people who play competitive League of Legends and watch the competitive LPL scene. Whereas the OPL, that's all your Oceanic fans. Like,
yeah,
everyone comes in to watch the OPL. You've got, low rated players, high rated players, everybody's there, and you get to have be more experimental, which was something I needed to do after setting up that framework of how does Fish be a good caster into how does Fish be Fish, basically. How do I, use my own personality to make my own commentary better?
yeah. And I guess that's one thing that like I never had to worry about, because the OPL broadcast was the way it was. Is like I pretty much just came in being me, and like a lot of feedback I got was positive. I'm sure there was like negative feedback for me, but like I think like as for someone that was kind of new, being a part of that environment was like really cool. Um,
Yeah, absolutely agree. And again, look at all the talent that OPL has produced. I mean,
we got
even
the best
people like
casters in the
like
world.
exactly, even like Papa Smithy, Pastry Time, Atlas, Spawn, Frostkern, like so many big name
Well, you can
casters.
say like
Ejim even,
Raz, like
Raz
yeah.
as well. Like, Raz is the lead analyst on the LPL now. Like look at this. Every single region, there is a Oceanic spy that's infiltrated. I mean, you've got Pastry Time in NA, Frostkern in EU, Papa Smithy and Atlas on the LCK. You've got Raz on the LPL. You've even got me in the GPL now. So this is one spy in every single region. I think that's what Spawn's been going for.
Yeah, we need someone in. Oh no, yeah, you're right. We have everyone now. We have it all covered. We need
And all
someone in the
the English
LMS, I
broadcasts,
guess.
we've got it all in the LMS.
Yeah. Um. So then, what? Because we spoke about the transition and things like that. So what was the transition like for you in casting mobile games, and then, uh, going from like League to mobile games, and then back to League? Like, was that hard? Because I found that quite challenging, but like for you, I think you're not. I think you're definitely a lot better than I was as a caster. So what was that like?
So I'll fill in one small gap between that first, which
Yeah.
was moving from Australia to China,
Yeah.
because I was
Sorry.
still working
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Riot there. Um, I had the option to continue working in the LPL for last year, or move to Riot China and work on the LPL. And that was the first time the LPL was being moved on site. And again, this was another time where I sat down with Mr. Spoon to Billy,
Spoon to be elite.
hashtag Jake shoutout stream, and had a long, in-depth discussion, the pros and cons of moving. And one of the things that I really favored was security, basically. And
Mhm.
moving to China provided me a lot of security and working full-time on a product as a shoutcaster.
Yep.
Um, and it was a bit scary to move over to a foreign country, but it was also a really good opportunity for me to use a skill that I learned in Singapore, which was picking up Mandarin. So it was a tough choice. It's one that even till today, I still don't know if I've made the right choice. I don't know if I would have had a much better time working on the OPL still, because when I look back at it, if I had to rank like which products have I worked on in the past
Hmm.
that I had the most enjoyable time, the OPL is like up, like beyond your screen right now.
Yeah.
That's how highly I respect the OPL as a product and the people that I got to work with there. So it was, I still, to this day, I don't know if I made the right choice because I
Yeah.
still remember the OPL so fondly. But I think in terms of growing as a person, moving to China just put me completely out of my comfort zone. Like that was completely different to anything I was ever used to. So
Yeah.
this country doesn't speak English, everything's different there. The cultural experience is so much different from what I'm used to. But it was good. I got to learn Mandarin even better than I already have before. My Mandarin's been polished up. I can now communicate effectively with people. Previously, I would stutter a little bit and like take a lot of time. Now I can
Mm.
do it like it's a second language almost. Unfortunately, there was a lot of tension between me and Rai in Shanghai due to a lot of discrepancies and disputes between us.
Yep.
And I ended up leaving the company after the spring finals. So I tendered my resignation. I thought I was going to go back to the OPL, but while after I tendered my resignation, a ex Ryan employee from Riot Shanghai reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I'm starting a new startup. Would you like to come and join me as one of the commentators?" And we actually had one of the Riot casters, Dom, who did a few casts with us part time on the Rules of Survival Mobile while we were starting up. And when we when I moved over to Fun Plus, I, like you said, started commentating on mobile games. Now, this is something I actually implore every commentator to do, which is go and cast a different game. If you're a League of Legends caster, I don't care. Go and cast FIFA. Go and cast, Overwatch. Any game. Just pick one, cast it. You will learn and grow as a commentator 10 times faster by casting something you're not used to. Because what you get in the habit of when you cast League of Legends or your main game all the time is you know what's going to happen. It's like if you watch a Caitlyn Morgana composition, for example, and they are winning the bottom lane, you know that they're going to take all three turrets unless something crazy happens. You just know that this is going to happen because that's how it's always happened. But if you cast a different game, you suddenly have no idea what the F is going to go on next
And you can't ramble.
because
You can't
you
ramble. You
can't
can't.
ramble.
Yeah. It's
So you
hard.
turn
Yeah.
into you turn into not only having to rely heavily on your preparation coming into that cast, but you also need to start reacting on the fly a lot faster than what you used to
Mm.
casting your main game. Because in League of Legends, like if an Orianna shockwave comes out, go back, if you watch the OPL when I was casting, there were so many times when Orianna big shockwave hit and Spawn and I at the same time would say shockwave at the exact same time because we know it's just we've seen this so many times. It's just repetition.
Well.
When you take that repetition away, you grow. It's the same reason why when you go to the gym or when you go and play football, you often get put into exercises that hinder you because that stops you from relying on repetition. That makes it so you have to grow and focus on something different in order to be better.
And a fun fact,
Uh,
you asked me to before I came to China. No one, they like your bosses didn't know that like I wasn't a commentator and they didn't know what I sounded like. So you asked me to do you asked me to cast one of the mobile games, record it, and send it to you. And
mhm.
100% I could bet my life on it. I could solo cast a League of Legends game, or I could at least talk about it, right? Like easily. Like I'll put a VOD in front of me and I'll be able to commentate it with no dramas. And you asked me to do it for a Rules of Survival game, and then
Yep.
I was like, hey Fish, I can't send you the VOD, and you're like, why? And I was like, well, I can't commentate this game on my own because there's like so much downtime, and I don't really know what to say or talk about. Like it was genuinely impossible to do it by myself. So what you say is like 100% correct.
And
100%.
I agree. And I mean, it wasn't the first time I've casted something different. When I was working in Garena, I'd done every game that they needed a commentator for. I put my hand up, like, I'll give it a shot. Uh, Recently, I even commentated on the fitness challenge for Wild Banana. That was a lot of fun too. But it's just something that I learnt while I was casting in Garena. It's something that I just found out when you do something different, it just makes you think so much more. You have to get ready for what's about to happen, and it helps it out. So I would say when I first started casting the ROS scene, I was so bad at it, but I grew a lot faster. And when I transitioned back to League of Legends, which is your second question,
Yeah.
that was the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. In the sense that I had literally taken everything I learned from ROS, every piece of advice I'd learned from the OPL, the LPL, and combined them together. And it was the way I described it to a friend of mine was it was almost like I flicked a switch and I was like, wow, I actually understand what I'm meant to do now. It's no longer me as a shoutcaster. Because even during the OPL finals, my last cast in Oceania, even during the spring finals for the LPL before I left Riot, um, I was still like putting pieces together as I went. I was like, oh, was that good? Was that bad? Was that joke funny? Was that call okay? Did I set up the cast properly? When I came back after casting ROS, it was like switch was flipped, and I was like, I know exactly what I need to do. I've been here before. I know how to set this one up. And I actually did 4 different positions on the C Tour this year. I was a play-by-play, I was a host, I was on the analyst desk, and I was even a color caster. And although my analyst desk and my color caster were probably my weakest because they're not my main roles, I've looked back at the bonds and I was like, you know what, that
Wasn't
was
that bad?
pretty okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't that bad. I even got Rusty and a few of the other casters like Frostgurn from overseas to watch it. Rusty had only one feedback for me, which was, why do you hate every single pro player? Like, that was a great play from Team X. Why do you say that Team Y is so bad and why do you hate on them? And I was like, because that's my region, Rusty. I grew up in that region. I played against some of these players. I get to shit on them whenever I want, okay? I can say
Hey,
whatever I want about them.
hey, if I recall correctly, when we versed Avant in the OPL, he actually said one of his players were horrible.
There
Maybe
you
he
go.
didn't use the word horrible. I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but he said he had a very bad game. In other words, so maybe he took a rule out of your book there. He took something out of your book.
Maybe. I agree with the analysis. I was a very negative caster when I was casting my old region. It's just a force of habit.
It's
Like
easier.
I
Well,
played
it's
against.
easier to point out what someone's done wrong than it is to like point out what someone's done well, in
Yes.
my opinion, from someone that's casted as well. It's like I could always be like, "What's that guy doing?" And
I had a conversation with a couple of the players too, and I was like, "Hey, look, I'm not doing this because I hate you or anything. I'm doing it because I've played against you before, and I know that you're better than this. So I could have been more positive about things, but it's just the way my casting is working at the moment. That's all.
bad luck go next.
Bad luck. GG next time.
Yeah,
Next time maybe I'll focus someone else.
you're actually a smurf because everything I want to ask you, you somewhat touch on in the previous question. But I wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for anyone wanting to get into the industry and/or casting?
I do have one piece of advice that I think every commentator should say.
Yeah,
If you want to get into things,
and what is
go and
that?
bloody, go and bloody do it. I have so many commentators that will come up to me and be like, I really want to be a commentator. What do I do? And I was like, okay, can you show me your first VOD? And they go, I don't have one. And I say, well, that's your problem. How do you want to be a commentator if you've never done a commentary? It sounds counterintuitive, but really the best thing you can do is pull up a game, any game, it could be a ranked game, it could be a professional game, and cast over it. You don't need to know the format. You don't need to know what makes you a good caster because a lot about casting is it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because if the best example again is go and watch some of the old League of Legends shoutcasters. Go and watch Rivington during season 1, season 2. Go and watch Joe Miller and D-Man during the first few seasons of League. There are so many times where what they say is factually inaccurate, down to naming champions wrong, like
I
saying
still hear
Kha'Zix is
it.
Orianna and stuff like that.
I still hear that.
Exactly,
They'll be
it's
like, "Oh,
factually
he's
inaccurate.
flashed, or he's used his summoner," and it's like, "No, he hasn't."
Yep. Yeah, and no one cares
No.
because no one cares what you say. They care about how you say it. That's why all your favorite League of Legends personalities and commentators are all really good at speaking because they say things in such a way that keeps you entertained. So go and do it. Just go and make a VOD, and when you're done with the VOD, ask people for advice. Send it to your friends. Put it on YouTube. Send it to casters, and then you'll start getting feedback. Then you can start looking into things like, there's such very basic esports guides. Red Eyed has his famous How to Be a Shoutcaster manual, which is basically the esports commentator's Bible. D-Man has a good 15-minute video on YouTube teaching people how to be a commentator. There's workshops being run all around the world by, amateur casters, professional casters alike, trying to help people out become better commentators. So there is things out there, but
Are you running
if you
one?
haven't, uh, I don't have one running at the moment. I will in the future,
Hmm.
but my DMs are open. Like people can email me, and whenever people do, I'm more than happy to give some advice. But if they don't have a VOD, there's nothing much I can really give advice for.
So
So go and do it.
one of my friends just said something really funny in chat. He said Shia le fish because you
I
were
should make
saying
one of those.
just do it, kind of, kind of.
Just get behind a green screen, take all these scripts, and just start doing the Shia
Just
LaBeouf,
yell
and
and
just
just yell a lot. Yelling is the best form of motivation, 100%.
I agree with that.
Um, so before we get to anything else, I would like every single person that's here to I'll go through all the links, but I'm gonna give him a big and a copy and a paste into the chat. Um, so follow Twitter Maxi. That's obviously his private. Um, where he posts some good content sometimes, but he definitely doesn't know how to eat a Kit
Sometimes.
Kat. Um,
Oh no, I do. It's the
yeah,
only way to Kit Kat.
yeah. Follow the Loudmouths TV, which is Fisher's business. Um, which actually I worked for, by the way.
You did.
Yes, I
You
worked for
did
that
too.
business. Um, and the Darren Stewart Academy, which is a soccer or football, wherever you're from, academy that is in his father's name. Um, and I don't. Do you want to elaborate on the Darren Stewart Academy to follow that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. I can elaborate
I'll bring it
on
up on
both really.
I'll bring it up on stream. So I got it open on stream. I got the website open on stream. Um,
Sure. I can elaborate on Llama's really quickly.
yeah.
Llama's is basically an esports consultancy firm that I founded. One of the things that we do is we provide talent for different broadcasts.
Uh-huh.
So before I was working for FunPlus full time, we were actually working with them to provide talent. So we sourced Juice for a couple of the Rules of Survival mobile streams, and we've done things like the Hong Kong Music Esports Festival. I helped consult for Riot, even though I was technically working for Riot at the time, just giving them some advice on who to pick up for Hyperplay, but I wasn't a paid event. So we just do stuff like that.
Mhm.
I've kind of taken a step back to run the academy instead. Unfortunately, last year I was going into business with my father before he suddenly passed away, and it was about a week before he passed away that I started working with him on his academy called Jet Sports, and he was a really well-known footballer in Southeast Asia and a really phenomenal children's coach. Like he taught me everything I knew. The coaches that work for my academy were taught by him as well.
Mhm.
What we've gone and done is we've taken the academy after my dad passed away. We've rebranded it and we've just made it something that's in his memory instead. And it's based in Singapore. We really want to bring it out to Australia because my dad played for the Newcastle Jets. We're hoping to bring it over there and
He played
eventually
for
bring it to
Australia as well.
Malaysia as well. He was the Australian Player of the Year
Mhm.
in 1994, the year that I was born, or 93. I think 93, 94. Um, yeah, so hopefully one day I'll be able to bring it over to Australia, but just happy to see that, his legacy and passion for football, which I didn't share too much of. I was more passionate about video games. I was a football coach and played football, but it
Mhm.
wasn't really my passion. But I'm just happy to see that his passion of playing football is being passed on to the next generation, and good to see that lots of kids are learning to play football in the academy now.
100%, 100%. I really respect what you're doing, and like I told you, if you ever comes to Australia, comes to Sydney, come to Melbourne, hit me up. More than happy to come down and do like a session or two or three.
Nice.
Yeah,
Celebrity 600 IQ,
yeah.
Jawline of the Gods coach coming in.
Can't move, too fat. Yeah, that's me.
No,
That's me.
no, that's not true.
Yeah. But yeah. And then just on another note, I have two more things before we answer any questions, or Fish can answer any questions for you guys. Um, just quickly, we have we just announced actually not too long ago a community partnership with Summoner Society. And I think this is like a really good partnership because it's kind of like grassroots. We all started somewhere. Like I'm sure Fish would agree. Like you always start
Yeah,
playing like tournaments that you just play with your friends for fun. So it's like really cool to help and partner with such a group. And they're really awesome. And if you want a low-key leak just for being here, this is our OCS and OPL coaches going into Split 2. So there you go. Give that a look.
ooh,
Give that a read. Um, quick leak. WikiLeaks. And yeah. So Fish, how this is from Gauss. I think his name's Gauss. Uh,
Okay,
how do you think the boys will do at MSI tonight? And by boys, I mean Bombers.
the Bombers.
Yeah,
I think that Oceania wrote them off really quick when they got put into Group B.
100%.
Um, I think they were written off. I don't think it's going to be easy. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is going to be like an easy Bombers are going to sweep the group or anything. In my opinion, I think they're going to do well. Look at the talent that we're sending over to MSI. You've got people who for the longest time were up and comers in the region. Tommy, Phoebe. I'm using names that you use all
Yeah,
the
I used
time
to
now, like
be. Yeah,
Ryoma, FBI, Rogue. These are people that when I was casting the OPL, I said FBI and Rogue are the best spot lane in the OPL.
yeah. Uh huh.
That's when they were playing with you at the time,
Yeah.
Juice. And I said they're the best spot lane. Everyone thought, no, you're crazy. No chance. They're the best spot lane in OPL.
Mhm.
Like they're absolutely phenomenal. You've got a great mid laner, and your import slots are taken up by fabulous players as well who synergize so well. So I don't think that this is going to be like a complete stomp going in favor of everybody else in that group. Yes, it's considered the group of death, and I 100% agree with that. I think Oceania is going to come out there and for the first time really take away that stereotype of Oceania is going to win one game and lose the rest of everything. I think that even if Oceania lose all their matches going to this, I think we'll see a really good performance and one that the region can be proud of.
That's pretty good analysis. I'd probably agree with like most of it. I will say though, those three players are my Padawans. I did pluck them from the jaws of solo queue. So if they win OS Worlds, then I'm definitely getting my name on the plaque. That's for sure. Um, and the last thing is, I'm not sure how much you know about OCS, but what is your thoughts on OCS this split, if you know anything? Like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what you know, but
Well, I don't know much about the changes. Do you know anything that any? Can
um,
you elaborate on some changes made for OCS this split?
there's no promotion and no relegation. There's a lot of young players. There's a lot of the like really stacked OCS players are playing OPL now. So I think it's like a really good opportunity for a lot of like young, good OCS players to use this year as a stepping stone for OPL next year, because historically it's always been like um old washed up players like keeping slots and just playing for money and for fun.
Oh
Um,
no.
but no, but
Um,
but OPL this year, there's like a tendency to go with the younger kid now. You know what I mean? And it's to give
no,
that kid a chance.
no promotion meaning just for the split or
No, there's no,
done, no more
yeah,
promotion
there's no more promotion. You can't get relegated.
for that's it.
Yeah,
All wow.
yeah,
Um, I think it's a good step in terms of professionalizing the OPL. So I'll
yeah,
start on that first.
yeah,
It's a good step for that, but at the same time, we're not we're not the NALCS. We're not the EULCS yet. I think it would have been cool if there was still a grassroots way to get straight into the league still,
mhm,
so you can have success stories like, I mean, let's take NALCS for example, TSM, CLG. These are all teams that started as esports
Sin
teams. Now
Gaming.
you're getting teams, the same gaming. Now you're getting teams like Echo Fox and teams that are just big organizations coming into the scene. There's no real grassroots team clawing their way up into the leagues anymore. So I think Oceania still had a chance for that to happen. So I kind of dislike that doesn't exist anymore. But I
Yeah,
like what you said too, which is more chance for up and coming players to prove themselves, because now the OCS is not going to be treated by other orgs as just like a secondary league. Now this is going to be treated like this is where we can source new young
mm,
oceanic talent. This is where the next generation of players are going to be, because there's no incentive
yeah,
for the older players to retain spots anymore.
yeah. It's the smartest option anyway, if you're an org,
Yeah,
because you could find like this GM player, and then like halfway through the season, if you wanted to, you could sign him in OPL next year. Like,
exactly.
so yeah, that's poggers. Yeah. Well, Fish, I really appreciate you coming on and having a chat with me, because I know you're a very, very, very busy man. Um,
Nah, I was sleeping. It's fine.
oh, really?
See, I've got my pillow here. No, I'm
Uh,
actually going over to play football in a bit.
oh, nice. So is there anything that you would like to touch on before we hand this one off to the MSI gods?
I'd say good luck to Oceania. I hope that Oceania and LST meet in the finals of play-ins to decide, which region goes in. That'll be a lot of fun if
Yeah.
that actually happens. And hopefully one day I'll come back and jump on the Oceanic broadcast from time to time. I would love to come back one day and see everyone in Oceania and how they're doing.
At Matthew Bergen. At Matthew Bergen.
Die Bergen.
Yeah, no, again, thank you so much, man. And like, I really appreciate it. Let's talk again, but let's keep in touch off broadcast. And you're a really good dude. I really love you. And thank you. And see y'all later.